Hey, welcome. Today we're going to talk about something that touches millions of lives, Parkinson's disease. We're going on a journey, really, starting with those first tiny, nagging questions and taking it all the way to the amazing science that's paving the way for a cure. So let's jump right in.
It almost never starts with a bang. It's usually a whisper, a tiny shake in your finger you notice when you're just sitting there, or maybe a weird stiffness in your shoulder, and you think, am I just stressed? Is this just getting older? It's that question, right? Could this be something more? That feeling of uncertainty, well, that's exactly where this story begins for so many people.
Okay, so what are these first clues we're talking about? Like I said, Parkinson's doesn't just show up and announce itself. It's sneaky. It starts with these little, subtle signs, things that are so easy to just brush off. But learning to recognize them, that's the first, absolutely critical step. All right, let's talk about the one everyone knows, the tremor. But here's the thing you really need to get, the key difference. A Parkinson's tremor usually shows up when you're not doing anything. Like, your hand might be shaking while it's just resting in your lap. But then the second you go to pick something up or use that hand, the shaking often gets better or even stops. That's a huge clue, and it's totally different from, say, the jitters you get after a really hard workout or when you're super stressed.
Here's another one that's kind of fascinating. Check your handwriting. Seriously, have you noticed it's getting smaller, and not just smaller, but the words are all scrunched up together? There's a name for that. It's called micrographia. Now sure, your handwriting can change for other reasons, right? Like arthritis, or if your vision's not great, but this specific combo of shrinking and crowding, that's a pattern you want to pay attention to.
Okay, get ready for a symptom that might totally surprise you. It's about your sense of smell. And it's not just that things smell a little duller. It's often this very specific trouble identifying certain smells, like bananas, dill pickles, or licorice. You might sniff it and just not quite be able to place it. And the real kicker? Unlike a stuffy nose from a cold that goes away, this change tends to stick around.
All right, so we've looked at some of the clues on the outside, but the big question is, why? Why do these things happen? To answer that, we've got to go deeper. Let's take a look at what's actually going on inside the brain.
So what is Parkinson's really? At its heart, it's a condition where the brain changes over time. It all boils down to these very specific brain cells. Their job is to produce a chemical called dopamine. Now, dopamine is a huge deal. You can think of it like the lubricant for your body's engine. It's what allows for smooth, coordinated movement. In Parkinson's, these dopamine-producing cells start to die off, and when that happens, dopamine levels plummet. The result? The brain's signals for movement get all garbled and choppy.
And this really gets to two fundamental truths about this disease. Number one, it's progressive. That means symptoms don't stay the same. They slowly change over time. And number two, and this is so important, it's incredibly personal. There is no one-size-fits-all Parkinson's. The way it affects one person can be completely different from how it affects someone else. Everyone's journey is unique.
And make no mistake, the scale of this is huge. We're talking about over 8.5 million people around the globe living with Parkinson's, and that was back in 2019. Think about that. That number has more than doubled in just a quarter of a century. It's actually the fastest growing neurological condition in the world. It's a massive global challenge.
So you might be wondering, who's at risk? Well, the biggest risk factor, hands down, is age. The average diagnosis happens right around age 60. Genetics can be a piece of the puzzle. If it runs in your family, your risk is higher. But, and this is a big but, most cases are not passed down directly from a parent. We also know that men tend to be diagnosed more often than women, and something researchers are really digging into now is the environment. Things like long-term exposure to certain chemicals or pesticides might play a role too.
Okay, so understanding what Parkinson's is, that's step one. Now let's talk about the practical side of things. What's the path forward? How do doctors actually diagnose it? And what does managing it look like? This is a really important point to understand. There's no single, easy test for Parkinson's. You can't just get a blood test or a brain scan that says, yep, you've got it. The diagnosis is what doctors call clinical. That means it's a judgment call, really, made by a specialist who looks at the whole picture, your symptoms, your health history, and what they find during a really thorough neurological exam.
So, once there's a diagnosis, managing the condition is really a team effort with a lot of different tools. The main tool in the toolbox is medication, like levodopa. The whole goal of these meds is to fill that dopamine gap in the brain. Then, for some people, especially when the meds aren't working as well as they used to, there are surgical options like deep brain stimulation, which can be a real game changer. And you can't forget rehabilitation. Things like physical therapy, speech therapy. They are absolutely essential for keeping you moving and living your life to the fullest.
Look, getting a diagnosis, it's not the end of the road. Not by a long shot. It's really the beginning of a new chapter. So, let's shift gears and talk about what it actually means to live well with Parkinson's, especially the parts of it that people don't always see. The best way to think about Parkinson's is to picture an iceberg. What you see above the water, that's the motor symptoms. You know, the tremor, the stiffness, the slowness. That's what people notice. But the biggest part of the iceberg is hidden beneath the surface. And that's where you find the non-motor symptoms, the invisible stuff. We're talking about depression, anxiety, major sleep problems, and honestly, these can be even more challenging and have a bigger impact on daily life than the things people can see.
So what can you actually do? The key thing here is that you're not just a passenger on this journey. You can grab the steering wheel. There are so many proactive things you can do to take control. Exercise, it's not just good, it's essential. Building a support system of friends, family, and other people who get it, absolutely vital. And probably the most empowering thing of all, become the expert on you. Learn everything you can, find a specialist you trust, and really partner with them. That puts you in the driver's seat for sure.
All right, let's end by looking to the future. And I want to be clear, right now, there isn't a cure for Parkinson's. But the horizon is absolutely full of hope. And that hope is being fueled by some just incredible breakthroughs happening in research labs all over the world.
And some of this stuff is seriously exciting. Take this new alpha-synuclein test. It's a total game changer. For the first time, we can detect a key protein that's the signature of Parkinson's. Just imagine, one day we could diagnose the disease before the shaking even starts. When you combine that with all the amazing genetic research and new therapies being developed, we are getting closer and closer to a future where we can actually slow this disease down, stop it in its tracks, or maybe even prevent it from ever starting.
And that brings up this really powerful idea, this search for a cure. That's not just a job for scientists wearing lab coats. It's a community effort. It takes all of us. Every single person can play a part, whether that's joining a research study, pushing for more funding, or just being there for a friend or family member who's living with it.
So, I want to leave you with this question to think about. We've talked about a lot of hope on the horizon, but how do we make that hope a reality? From just talking about it and raising awareness, to maybe joining a clinical trial, there are so many ways to get involved and make a real difference. The question is, what role will you play? Thanks so much for joining me.